Overall, you look at these two elements, development charges, reduction in taxes, can reduce the fees and taxes on a home in Ontario by up to $200,000.
Even before today's press conference began, the atmosphere was already tense. A heckler repeatedly interrupted, attempting to disrupt the moment and shift attention away from the message. But instead of reacting, Mark Carney remained steady, composed, and focused. Calm under pressure, disciplined in delivery. And in that moment, the contrast became clear. The difference between distraction and direction. For months, Donald Trump has applied pressure on Canada through tariffs, economic signals, and policy unpredictability that has unsettled even long-standing alliances. But what if that pressure did not weaken Canada? What if it triggered something much larger? Because today, Mark Carney and Doug Ford introduced a move that could significantly influence Canada's economy, its housing sector, and its long-term direction. This is not just another policy step, it is a response. What makes this moment important is not only the scale of the announcement, but the context behind it. This did not emerge in isolation. It reflects a shift in the Canada-United States relationship, one that has evolved rapidly rather than gradually. Under Donald Trump, predictability has given way to uncertainty. Stability has been replaced with a more transactional approach. And when your largest economic partner begins making decisions that directly affect domestic industries, workers, and long-term planning, the response cannot be delayed. It has to be immediate.
As President Trump's tariffs take direct aim at Ontario's workers and create chaos and uncertainty for businesses, our government is delivering on our plan to protect Ontario. We may not be able to control President Trump, but what we can control, the decisions we make here in Ontario and Canada. By building the most competitive, resilient, and self-reliant economy in the G7. To protect Ontario, we're investing in our world-class workers, our businesses, and our infrastructure. Ontario is leading the country when it comes to breaking down internal trade barriers so we can unlock more than $200 billion in new economic activity. Will add roughly about 4 to 6% to our GDP across the country. We're building new pipelines, rail lines, airports, seaports, so we can find new trading partners and rely less on old ones.
And that response is now taking shape. Canada is no longer positioning itself purely in reaction to external pressure. It is beginning to define its own trajectory. A trajectory focused on reducing reliance, expanding strategic options, and strengthening internal capacity. Because when uncertainty originates externally, resilience must be built internally. That is what this announcement reflects. Not just cooperation between levels of government, but coordination, a structured alignment designed to support economic stability, reinforce domestic strength, and ensure that decisions made outside the country have less influence over what happens within it.
Oh, Russ. I almost drank your water. Did you have a sip of that?
I didn't touch it.
Okay, I'll take a sip. This isn't going to turn me into a liberal, is it? I've already been accused of being a liberal. Okay, sir. Well, they do accuse me. But anyways, here we go. Sorry, folks. That's more than 30% reduction, which will save more than 375,000 small business, an average of $5,000 annually. So they can invest that money back into their businesses and create more jobs and economic opportunity. We're investing more than ever in our $236 billion plan to build, which is the largest plan of its kind in Canadian history. Our plan is building roads, highways, bridges, hospitals, schools, and all the critical infrastructure we need to make life affordable, keep workers on the job, and keep our economy growing.
Then comes the scale of the initiative. This is not symbolic, it is structural, a major financial commitment. Approximately $8.8 billion, representing collaboration between federal and provincial leadership aimed at addressing one of Canada's most pressing challenges, housing affordability. And not just housing supply, but the cost structure behind it. For years, development charges have been a significant factor in rising home prices. Fees embedded into every new build, often unnoticed but deeply impactful. That cost burden is now being reduced with charges effectively cut in half.
And I'm going to repeat this because this is important. Development charges across this province are reduced by half for 3 years. And yeah. And we reduced by half, we're still building the essential infrastructure. Through the Build Community Strong Fund, Canada will invest $4.4 billion over 10 years. Matched by Ontario, a total of $8.8 billion to build the housing enabling infrastructure and reduce those development charges. This is going to lower upfront costs and create certainty for builders to build the affordable homes so Ontarians can buy and rent. A 2-bedroom apartment in Etobicoke, this alone reduces costs by $40,000.
This is where the impact becomes tangible. Because beyond the funding itself, the real significance lies in what it means for individuals and families. When reduced development costs are combined with targeted tax measures and coordinated infrastructure investment, the cumulative effect becomes substantial. Estimates suggest potential savings reaching up to $200,000 on a home. That is not incremental. It is transformative, the kind of shift that can determine whether someone enters the housing market or remains excluded from it. It changes accessibility, it changes timelines, and for many, it changes outcomes entirely.
Overall, you look at these two elements, development charges, reduction in taxes, can reduce the fees and taxes on a home in Ontario by up to $200,000. I want to say there's one last suite of announcements I want to make, which directly ties housing supply with the infrastructure that is needed. It's basically create a force multiplier for construction.
What unfolded today goes beyond the housing policy update. It reflects an adjustment to a changing global environment, an environment where traditional alliances are evolving, where economic pressure can emerge from unexpected directions, and where countries must adapt to maintain stability. Under Donald Trump, Canada has experienced these shifts directly through tariffs, policy changes, and broader uncertainty. But instead of delaying, Canada is responding, investing domestically, strengthening internal systems, and positioning itself to operate with greater resilience and independence. Because pressure does not always weaken a system. In some cases, it accelerates change. And today, Canada signaled that it is choosing to adapt, to build, and to move forward on its own terms.